Hi and welcome to today's episode of Women's Health Unwrapped. I hope you're well and ready for another brilliant, informative and inspiring episode. Today I'm joined by Melissa Rose, who is an applied functional medicine practitioner, and she specialises in autoimmune disease, which we know is massively on the rise for women. She also specialises in complex illness, mystery illnesses and rare autoimmune conditions. Melissa is an expert in helping people to recover from autoimmune disease and conditions, and she's joined me to share her personal story of recovering from MS, and being on that path led her to where she is today. So she's got lots of personal experience as well as all of the relevant knowledge, qualifications, experience and so on to help you to improve your health, whether you have an autoimmune condition or not. I know there's going to be lots of tips you can take away and use to build and protect your health. So welcome to the podcast, Melissa.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. I love your energy. And when we'd spoken a while ago to prep for the episode, I loved what you shared with me about the journey you've been on and the way you talk about your recovery. So I definitely want to unwrap all of that. But just to kick us off, I'd love to know from you, at the moment, what would you say your most impactful healthy habit is in your toolkit?
And it's not one that I learned early on,
Right.
but my most impactful habit for me is taking time for meditation in the morning. As soon as I get up, before I do anything else, I have space to just be. And then that sets me up for my day.
Oh, fantastic. And do you have like a preferred way to meditate? Do you use guided audio ones, or do you now, have the skills and know how to do it yourself unguided?
I usually do guided because I have such a squirrel brain. If I don't have something kind of catching my attention and keeping me on track, I'm like, thinking about all the other things.
Yeah.
So, I like
Fantastic.
to use a guided meditation.
Oh, that's
in a
brilliant.
broad range of them.
Yeah. And so do you like different, because I think the voice is very crucial on guided ones, isn't it? I know I've tried lots of different ones, and Andy, I think it's Puddicombe, the guy who set up Headspace, which is quite a big global one. I think I've just got Headspace actually again recently. I used to have it when I worked in corporate as part of our wellness program, and his voice was just so soothing. But then I've listened to other ones and thought, no. So I think, it's important to pick ones that you enjoy and can relax to as well, isn't it?
Yeah, agreed. Yeah. I love doing Jess Shepherd's meditations from Rising Higher Meditations. Just same thing. Her voice is just really, I can just be in the moment.
Oh, what a brilliant way to start off your day. And although it doesn't have to be meditation, I do have a morning routine that I, encourage people to build, even if it's just a minute or a couple of minutes of each of these three M's. But one of those is about the mindfulness piece, which can be through meditation, because just as you said, like having that space to check in with yourself at the beginning of your day is just so powerful. It's helping to build that positive mindset and intention as well about how you want to feel and go about your day, so that you do what you need to do to make that happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic.
Love it.
So you said that wasn't a tool you've had in your toolkit since the beginning. So I'd love to go back to your story of MS and sharing how that came about, what that felt like, and what you did at the beginning to start this road to recovery.
So my MS journey started, I didn't know then, but I know now that it started at the age of 9 as a result of sexual abuse from my dad. And so through my growing up years, my teenage years were crazy. And when we talk about lady issues, periods were terrible. had a couple instances of just hemorrhaging. And so, that being a part of this journey was significant. Symptoms kept getting worse up until I think I was age 30, 31, somewhere in there. By then, my entire left side was completely numb. I could move my hand and leg, but I couldn't feel anything. To pick something up, I couldn't do it. So you guys would get this shaving your legs. If I would shave a whole bunch of skin off my leg, I couldn't feel it.
Wow.
And I would, finish my bath or shower and walk out, and my kids would go, "Mom, you're bleeding again." Oh, geez. Or to step on glass or step on something with my bare feet, I would just, leave a trail of blood behind me because I didn't feel it. My right side was going numb. But the thing that really triggered me to start trying to figure out what was going on was I was fixing supper, and I have 3 boys, right? And they were just little. So all of my knives, my big, sharp butcher type knives, were up in a cupboard. So they were out of reach. And thank God I didn't have a hold of the knife yet. But I was reaching up to get a knife to start, chopping meat and stuff for supper. And something popped in the back of my head. And I just ended up in a pile on the floor. I could hear, but I couldn't see. I couldn't move my mouth. I couldn't move anything. So the kids thought I was dead. And it was before the era of cell phones. So just waited for my husband to get home. Obviously, I couldn't do anything. The kids they were too little to be able to use the house phone we had. And that was what kind of triggered. I did start to come out of that. I was able to get a little bit of mobility back after that. But I was like, okay, we've got to figure out what's going on because this can't happen. So that started my journey to then being run through the mill of testing and all the fun things until age 33 when I got my diagnosis of multiple sclerosis.
It's such a long time as well to have had symptoms probably worsening and having some impact on your life. And at that point, Melissa, were you, I know you had the symptoms, but were you what you would have thought of as a healthy person? Were you doing things to take care of yourself and live a healthy lifestyle?
I did the best I could. I worked out every day like a fiend because I was like, I've got to keep my ability to walk. And I was steadily losing it no matter what I did. I was a runner for a while, very slow, stumbled a lot, but I just would push into it. I think the thing that got me the most was the absolute terror of what's going to happen now. What's going to happen as my body continues to go downhill? What is this going to look like for me? So even though I was doing my very best to be healthy, eat healthy, do healthy, drivers for what was happening in my body, I had no idea what they were nor how to address them.
And what kind of support were you given when you got the diagnosis? What did they do to help you know how to build strong health? Because with MS, you do have to look after yourself to try to slow the progression of the condition, don't you?
So that's exactly the option they gave me, was 2 meds to slow the progression. So both of the medications, much like the medications today, would modify my immune system and negatively impact my organs.
Right.
And at the time of diagnosis, my doctor had said, so I was 33. He was like, by the age of 45, very likely you're going to be bedridden. By the age of 50, well, you're going to be lucky to be 50. Very likely you'll be dead by then. And so I thought, why am I going to take meds that are going to damage my body further? Why don't I just do life the best I can and live every day to 125% and let whatever happens, happens? So that was my choice.
And what did that choice entail that meant you actually recovered from MS?
So I didn't do anything for the next few years, probably 2 years.
Right.
We moved to a new area for a job and I made new friends. And one of my new friends was like, I want you to go see my doc. And at that time, I was over doctors. I was over testing. I was over all the things. Like, I'm just going to do my life, whatever that looks like. Great. So she persuaded me to go see her doc, who does much what I do. Had no idea there was any such thing. Had no preconceived ideas that I would ever get better. I was expecting my path to look like what the doctor had described to me, which now that makes me fighting mad because it wasn't true. But if I had believed it, I have every expectation that that's what would have happened to me. So anyways, go to see this doc, and he starts gently working on unraveling what is causing this for me. And we started addressing those causes. And it took about 2.5 years for me to fully recover. And I've been fully recovered since the age of 40. And I'm 48.
And so what was the uncovering that led to the recovery then? It sounds like that was therapy, talking, looking at the trauma that you perhaps had in your life, but was it that alongside other lifestyle factors?
Yeah. But also understanding that I had a candida overgrowth like none other. There was a major parasite infestation, major bacterial imbalance, a lot of things that my body was missing. Magnesium was a huge one for me, still is, because of some of my genetic SNPs. But really putting the pieces together for my body to have the support it needed, as well as my mind, the emotional parts of me, the traumatized parts of me, to be able to then work in concert to allow space for my body to recover.
So such an incredible and inspiring story. And you do hear of this not just with autoimmune diseases, many of which can be very debilitating and even life-threatening, but with other diseases as well. And this isn't about positive thinking and miraculously recovering, in a way that nobody can explain. This is still an applied medicine approach to health, isn't it? Which isn't what we have as part of our typical Western healthcare systems, like in the UK, US, Australia, and a lot of Europe and so on, where it's about those, like you said, tests, prescribing very traditional types of medicines and so on, but not looking at, like you've just explained, all of those other things that are very much a part of our bodies and the way we function, which can include our mind as well. So tell me a little bit about the work that you now do then to help other people to use that same kind of process and framework that you had, which helped you to recover.
Each person, me, you, everybody that's listening, we are our own special person. There's nobody like us. Literally. We might have a doppelganger somewhere, but even that person is not exactly like us, right? And what I love helping people do is, I use this analogy often. When you get a fun new puzzle and you open it up and you dump all the pieces out on the table and you start sorting through, looking for the edges, looking for the corners, putting the colors together. That's what we do. We look at your being, body, mind, spirit, as a whole, and then just start sorting out the pieces. Because our bodies never do anything without a reason. They just don't. They don't fall off the rail and get all mad and start turning against us and hate on us or fight us. Our bodies literally are doing their very best for us, 100% of the time. But when symptoms start to happen and dis-ease processes start to happen, it's because there's a reason or reasons that is driving it. And we can know those reasons. That was another huge lie to me. Was two of the first questions I asked my doc when he was like, sorry, you've got MS. I was like, first, what's causing this? And what can I do about it? He's like, I don't know. I don't know what caused it. And I don't know what you can do about it. And I have dedicated my professional life to helping people answer those two questions. Because in those questions lies the resolution of what's happening in your body. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is probably, though, to people who aren't in the space we're in as professionals, it can be very strange and seem a bit woo almost. But this whole mind-body connection is real, and we're seeing lots of science now proving this. Funny enough, I just had a call with a psychologist, and actually the episode will be out before yours is, but she was saying how she's worked in women's health for nearly 30 years and, psychiatry, and that she has seen and realised through her career the impact of our bodies on our minds, but the hormones, especially as women, on our minds, and that whole connection. And the research that she was sharing with me about that they're now starting to do to look at how someone with a psychiatry problem can be helped and recover through modalities that include or involve predominantly the body, but yet we've always separated that, the psychology with the physiology, and yet they are very much connected, and that's essentially what you're talking about. And functional medicine isn't woo, it is medicine, isn't it? And you are testing, you're looking at within the body, you're not just, holding your hands over someone hovering saying, I think there's this going on in the gut or in the blood or whatever it might be. Is it just for people who aren't aware? So actually maybe let's explain then that term. It's functional medicine or sometimes integrative medicine, but it is this holistic 360-degree approach, which isn't the typical approach we have in our normal healthcare system.
So I like to explain this as looking at the whole person. So, like, especially when I just brought on a new client yesterday, so I'm thinking, how do we work with that? So a really in-depth symptom analysis that I use to then springboard and understand more deeply what's happening in the body, the timeline that's led up to this, including any exposures, any traumas, any deep things that has happened, and then what the body has shared as symptomology as a result of that. Being able to catalog all of that and then build a body of information around what do we know. So that includes old test results, that includes everything, right? And then I can lean into what do we need to know as far as, especially around testing, what do we need to know? And a lot of the Western medical world only knows how to do blood work, different types of blood tests and all of that. Whereas I use that, but that is so surface level. Blood work is literally a snapshot into what is happening in the body the moment the blood is drawn. So if you do a blood draw, say now, and then in half an hour you do a blood draw of the exact same person, there will be major differences in the numbers. So we have to understand that. So I like to use more functional testing, like seeing what's actually happening in the systems of the body, using things like stool testing, urine testing, being able to take different samples, like continued samples, so we can put all of those samples together and get a median. What is the body actually doing here? And we can see much deeper into what is actually driving imbalance in the body. I find that to be much more helpful, especially when we're looking at complex and sometimes entrenched dis-ease processes in the body.
Yeah.
So it's really figuring out how to help the body work as it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And this is something, obviously I'm not qualified in the way you are with it all, but this is something I really do, emphasize. It's at the core of what I'm about in my coaching, in that whole mind-body connection piece, and how we have to integrate our habits and lifestyle. And I get so frustrated but saddened as well when I hear women obsessing just over their diet, and that's because they want to lose weight. And it's, well, what do I eat? How many calories do I have? Should I have this amount of protein or carbs or fats and so on? But they're not looking at their stress, their sleep, what's going on in their mind 24/7. Like, what are their thoughts like? What are their relationships like? What movement do they do? All of those things that come together, like you say, holistically, that create the way we function, because we're a machine essentially. So we can't just look at one thing and go, well, I'm eating right, so why am I not that size? Or why do I not feel like I've got more energy, when maybe all of those other parts of your life are out? So yeah, I'm kind of doing it at that level. And then certainly when I've had people who feel as though they're struggling to make changes, or it feels like there's something else out of kilter, then I do refer them to someone like yourself to do that type of work and more deeper medical dive into their bodies to see if there is anything going on. And I just think I know there's huge growth in this area of medicine, although it's still slow and comparable to typical stand medicine. But yeah, it's just fascinating, the kind of things that are going on in that space and what we're learning about. So I'd love to just find out a little bit more, and again, for someone listening who may not be familiar with what illnesses or diseases we're talking about when we say autoimmune illnesses. And as I mentioned in the introduction, they are on the rise quite drastically for women. And women, I can't remember the percentage off the top of my head. I don't know if you know, Melissa, but women far outweigh men in terms of every one of those diseases, and the rates that women versus men have them. So yeah, what are some of the more common ones, typical ones that you have patients or clients come to you to have help with?
Wow, it's such a broad range.
Is it?
Oh, okay. I'm trying to really lean in with this, because the other part of this is I don't really pay attention to diagnoses, like the name given to what is happening in the body, simply because it's not helpful. It's literally that. It's a name to describe or categorize what is happening in the body. It has nothing to do with what's causing it or how we address it. So I struggle with putting names to things because they don't matter. So I have a lot of people with multiple sclerosis, people with fibromyalgia, a lot of thyroid issues, a lot of women that have menstrual problems or fertility problems. Yeah, there's just such a broad range. I even work with individuals, especially kiddos that have things like autism, kiddos that have things like, just weird rashes and things that are happening, and their parents are like, what's going on? I do a lot of work with mold illness, a lot of work with toxicity, just because there aren't very many of us out here that actually know what to do with that. Do a lot of work with parasites because, again, very few practitioners actually know how to work with that. A lot of individuals who don't necessarily have one diagnosis, but 7. So it's kind of a mishmash. Whereas when we start peeling back the layers, it's like, oh, there's these main drivers for all of these different dis-ease processes that have been given these different names. Yeah. A really broad range of individuals who show up here. People with traumatic brain injuries, seizures, all kinds of things. Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. Yeah. It's fun.
It's
It's never
fascinating.
boring.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine there's lots of different types of clients as well. And as you said, every one of us are individual. And so, the plan that you put together for each of those people is going to be very different and really prescriptive for them, which again is unusual outside of traditional Western medicine. So what would be some of the things, someone listening may think, well, okay, I don't feel like I'm in the best of health. I don't feel like I've got something that could be, potentially an autoimmune disease or a specific illness. Or maybe they've already had a diagnosis, but, generally someone listening is going to go to their medical profession, like we say, the typical kind of doctor and so on, but probably doesn't have the affordability or even access to someone like yourself. So if somebody is wanting to improve their health, what are some of the more common impactful tools that you use, which can be picked up and used by any one of us to improve our health, especially when we're talking to women who, we're all trying to balance our hormones from that 40 plus age range, if not younger. Yeah.
Oh, I love this question. First of all, I work with clients all over the world. Just because you're not in the US doesn't mean you can't reach out and find someone who does what I do, or even to work with me. Second, I would encourage you to give yourself a moment of quietness and lean into your inner wisdom. This part of you, does this feel like me? Is this what I want for me? Depending on your answer, what do I want to change about this? And you might not know what to change. Like that's the next thought that comes is, okay, now what do I do? But just sit with it. I do not want this to be me. This doesn't feel like me. This doesn't need to be me. I don't have to be here. Just sit with it and then be open to what comes into your world. When you make a choice that is like, okay, this is not going to be me, it's surprising what shows up. And I would love, love, love to invite you guys to explore the functional health assessment. I shared this with you. It's free. It's the assessment I use with everyone when they come into my practice. But I have so many people all around the world that just do the assessment and then take what they learn to someone in their area or not. Sometimes they can really use that assessment to then go, okay, my first steps are these. This is the direction I need to head into, because it uses your symptomology to explore major systems in the body. And we have a numbering system, and you can add up and see which ones are your hot spots. Look for your top 3 hot spots of risk and use those to then look into what is your next step. So another thing that I love to do, and I worked really hard to make it possible for everyone, is to order some of these really deep functional tests on your own. You don't have to go through me. You can go on our website. We have a lab shop. You can order them yourself. And it doesn't matter if you're in the US, in Canada, in Europe, in Australia, you could still order them. And for a lot of people, that's where they start, is doing the functional health assessment, figuring out where their hotspots are, deciding what they want to do with that. Do they have a practitioner in their area that they can lean into and work with? Or do they want to explore testing on their own and see what happens there? It's completely up to you what you want to do and your comfort level. But just this right here, your inner knowing and your inner wisdom, give yourself permission to lean in, because you will know what your next step, your next best step is. And sometimes it's just sitting with that knowledge. This is me right now. This is where I am, but this is not going to be me forever.
Yeah, so many of us, well, a lot of us are so caught up in the busyness of life, and we probably hear this, you know this, I certainly hear this a lot as well, that many of us are missing what's going on because we don't have that mind-body awareness and the connection to ourselves. As you said, our real selves, everything's surface level almost. We're just going about life, doing this, going to work, looking after the home, the kids, blah, blah, blah. And we're not really connecting with what we are feeling and then in need of. And we are, like I say, hearing that mindfulness piece of taking time to just listen and feel and connect is so powerful. And I love how this is being made more mainstream through things like meditation, as you mentioned, and lots of other mindfulness practices. Not necessarily talking about it because it's going to lead to this connection and thing we're talking about now, but it will do ultimately. It's just not necessarily being positioned that way. But having that space to regulate your nervous system, to get in touch with what you're feeling is very powerful, isn't it? Yeah. And so when we talk then about, the next steps, like someone, whether it's that they've just taken time to listen, they think, okay, this isn't for me to have the testing, but I'm going to pay attention to what's going on, what I'm feeling and what I'm in need of. And then that like multi-prong approach you take, is that a combination of lots of different lifestyle factors, maybe with things like supplements and if they need it, medication, but obviously for the general person listening, is it that building that toolkit of different habits to make changes in how they live their life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we also use a lot of food.
Is that the biggest tool you use, Melissa?
That is a central tool. It's not the only one, but it is central, because what we feed our body becomes our body, quite literally. Like with a lot of the clients that I work with, they're highly sensitive. Some of them can't even look at a supplement. But we can use food because our bodies know what to do with that. And there are specific foods that carry specific, I want to say power, but it sounds weird, but have specific properties that our bodies respond to in a very gentle, natural way, because our bodies know what to do with food, right? And we have so much, I think we forget how much power we have in our food choices and what we can do with that and how we can literally use that as medicine. I mean, yes, I use a lot of supplementation. I don't do medication. I don't think I could do that ethically. I've been offered the opportunity to go to medical school twice, and I cannot do it. I cannot do it because our bodies are so perfectly and beautifully made that medication in very rare instances is needed.
I love what you said there about food as medicine, and I'm totally in alignment with that. There's so much that we can use food for, and many of us are stuck in that trap of, again, seeing it like as a very transactional thing, like I have to eat, I have to maybe enjoy it, I have to make it cheap and easy as well. But you can still achieve all of those eating in a much healthier, nutritional dense way. There's a brilliant doctor here in the UK who has a podcast called The Doctor's Kitchen. I don't know if you've come across him. He's amazing, and he talks about food being medicine. He's still quite young now. I want to say maybe late 30s or early 40s. But when he was in his very early 20s at medical school, he started to have some problems with his heart. And I can't remember the detail of what was wrong and so on, but I think he was having some kind of arrhythmia and something was found. Yep. And he was like, I can't have this at my age. I can't feel this way. He was constantly really drained and lacking in energy. And he is Indian, and his mother was like, okay, let's feed this problem. Let's use food as medicine, because culturally that's very much a part of how they are, in India. And he talks about how that became basically his healing modality. And he then, I can't remember the age, but within a few years, he had no problems and hasn't had any since. And now he runs the Doctor's Kitchen and teaches people how to use food as medicine, because it is just so powerful, isn't it? And it's accessible as well. And I know maybe some people think cost is a barrier to certain types of food, but generally it's accessible, as in it's something we can all look at and make shifts in to improve, our diet. And certainly when we look at ultra processed foods, reducing those from our diet is such a positive change to make, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge. And I think something else that we forget, or I forget too, is to welcome and be grateful and thankful and welcome the nourishment into our bodies, into our cells, intentionally. That changes how our bodies respond to food. Because if we're bringing in food and thinking, oh gosh, I have 5 minutes to eat this, and then I gotta, I know I gotta eat, because if I don't, things are gonna go sideways for me. But you don't even really taste it. It goes in, you're thinking about everything else you gotta do. You got 5 minutes before you gotta leave and pick up the kids. And your body is going to have the same mindset, if you will, about that food that just went in. It's not going to get digested well. You're not going to be able to really enjoy it. If you can't taste it, how do you enjoy it if you just gulp it down? And your body doesn't have time to really bring it in and assimilate it, beginning in the stomach and then into the small intestine and down through your body. It's not that you have to lay on the couch all day and just digest your food, but stopping for a minute and just, even if it is that 5 minutes, that's all you have. Enjoy it. Soak it in, love your food, love what's coming in, love the nourishment that's happening. And when that 5 minutes up, where you go? Just that much space of rest and intentional thinking and feeling and being in the moment can change your day, and it can change how your body assimilates that food.
Yeah, I totally advocate that as well. That's one of the tips that I use in work that I do with lots of clients on that mindfulness piece around eating, because it's quite common for people to eat at their desk, in an office space or on the run while they're working or eating in the car or whatever it might be. But as you say, not appreciating what they're eating, what they're putting into their body as well, and also helping that digestive system by being less active and active also in a mind brain point of view, not just moving around or standing and so on. So yeah, that's a great tip to give. Just before I wrap up, Melissa, I hope you don't mind if I ask you how old you are now.
48.
48. So I was just
I'm
interested.
Bedridden.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to ask, was to see, how many years you've now been in recovery and feeling healthy, well and strong, because that's just, that's so incredible to hear. And do you feel, do you just feel as though you are as healthy as you can be and that MS isn't a part of your body anymore?
Yes to both. Although, so fun fact, remember I was sick from the age of 9. Remember what it felt like to be well? So I remember a few years ago, it dawned on me. It's like, I feel better than I did at age 9. And I have continued to improve in how I feel. And I did not plan to stop, because I'm just like, how well can I feel?
Yeah.
Like somebody asked me, if you could be an age, back in your past, what would you be? And a lot of people say 18 or 21 or whatever. And I was like, when I was 18, I was barely able to get out of bed. I don't want to be 18. I'd be okay being 40. Because I felt good at 40.
And that's so empowering, isn't it?
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, it is.
It's fun.
And that's what I'm all about, is taking control of your health, because I know that when you do take control of your health, you build that strength, that resilience, that passion, that self-love and confidence. Everything positive comes from it. And it doesn't mean that life's a bed of roses every single day. We're all human after all. Sometimes the machine's on a little bit of a go slow, but generally it just empowers you so much. So that, I'm the same in that I have had some shifts in my hormones and health over the past 12 months or so, but from the age of 45, when I went through my full health transformation, because I had been improving some things a few years prior to that, but that was the best that I'd ever felt. I'd never felt like that. A bit like you, I can look at 18, at 16 and go, yeah, but I was like this and I didn't feel like that. Whereas then, life just changed for me in so many ways. And that is the power of taking control of your health and being healthy and strong. So just to wrap us up, I know you've given lots of tips, but I love to give kind of 3 simple steps someone can take. And I'm going to ask you to give them to help someone to have that body connection, like to really check in. Like, what would be 3 ways that someone could take those little steps to make that something they can do for themselves now?
So these are things that I learned in my path of recovery that were pivotal for me. And the first one was to realize that I am worth the time and effort and expense to be well. It's okay for me to take up space and make the choices I need to make to be well. It's huge for a mama who is taking care of everybody in the world, and she's last. And when you choose to begin your recovery journey, often that is the biggest thing, is to give yourself permission to take up whatever space you need to be well. The second one would be find a way to be safe in your own body. So the background of that is the fact that I didn't understand what was going on in my body. I felt like I had no control. I'd try to get out of bed one morning and nothing worked. Like I would roll out of the bed and land on the floor because my legs wouldn't work. And I couldn't get up. So I felt like my body hated me, was fighting against me, and I did not feel safe in my body. So in my first years of learning how to do meditation, my favorite thing was to get out of my body. Learn how to build the relationship with your body to be safe in your body. And that may take work, may take leaning in with someone who has skills and tools to teach you. And the third one is to understand that your body holds the wisdom and all the tools needed to be fully well. You come fully equipped. You're not missing pieces that you need. But sometimes it's just uncovering those pieces. You can be well. I know it. And you know it too when you listen into your heart. But those would be the 3 key pieces that can really make a difference for you as you are on your journey.
That's so beautiful. The way you put that as well, it was very soothing how you've explained that. And also what you said in your first step about knowing that you are worth it, that is absolutely kind of the missing link for many women, is that they aren't feeling their self-worth. That was my story. That's, everything that I do is aimed at helping women to realize their worth, to know that health is their biggest asset, and taking care of yourself is the biggest tick in the box to say, I am worth it. So I love how you explained that. And all 3 of those don't need any expertise as such, investment, equipment. This is, as you said, starting here with these 3 steps to check in with yourself and really get to know what's going on and feel that. So yeah, I love that. And I would really encourage you listening to take Melissa's advice on board and do that. Make some space, even plan it in your calendar to make it happen. 'Cause we can all listen to something on a podcast and go, yeah, that's good, I might do that, and don't do it. But
Right?
yeah, get it in the calendar now and follow up on that. And I'm going to pop everything in the show notes. But Melissa mentioned the symptom checker, the free
Functional health assessment. Yeah.
functional health assessment that you can check in with. I think I'll do that actually as well. I'd love to do that. And yeah, use that as well. Like use those 3 steps, use the functional assessment online, the free one, and start from there. And then think, yeah, okay. And then use the rest of the stuff I put out to help build those healthy habits. If you want to work with one of us, you can reach out, because often people do struggle with that. Okay, I know I need to do this, but how do I do that? And accountability is always a big part of it for lots of people as well. So just to let everyone know, Melissa, where's the best place to find out more about you if someone is interested in checking out more about what you do and how they can work with you?
Perfect. So you can go to our website. That's autoimmunerecovery. Everything about the practice is there. If you want to book in for a free consult with one of our team, you can do that. Just book an introductory call. So I'm going to kind of give you guys a sneak peek. So by the time this comes out, my book will be out. I'm so excited for that.
Yeah.
It's not
and what's
very
the book
long.
called?
My gosh, I can't
Can you
remember
not
the name.
say it?
Isn't that hilarious? I wrote it and I can't remember the name. But it's coming out. That will be on the website. It's short, sweet, and to the point. It's not a really big book. I think it's 100 pages or something like that. But the purpose behind it is to just seed hope. So yeah, check us out at autoimmunerecovery.org. If you have questions or comments, or if you want to just chat with some of our team, the availability for that is on the website.
Fantastic. Yeah, and I'll link to that in the show notes, and then you can find out more about Melissa and, as she said, the practice. So this is a team of people. Melissa's training other people to practice in functional medicine as well, which, yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes, everywhere over the next kind of 10 years. I do think we're going to see a big growth and realization of how much of a difference it can make in people's health. So thank you, Melissa. Yeah, thanks for your experience and passion, sharing everything with me today.
My pleasure. Thank you for this opportunity, and thank you for the work you are doing. It is pivotal, my dear. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Like you, I know the value of your health, and I also know the value when you don't have good health for myself, and also my mum, her story of having lots of different health problems. And I just don't want other women to experience that, because I know that many, like yourself, many of what diseases or just ill health that we're struggling with physically or mentally is linked to our lifestyle and how we are, whether it's things we're intentionally doing or not intentionally doing and know about. So yeah, I just want us to all to have that realization of health and live a long, strong life at the end of the day, because like you found out, when that's threatened and it suddenly looks like life's going to be cut short, or you aren't going to have your full mobility, then it's a very scary place to be, isn't it? Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, Melissa.
Oh, my pleasure.